أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه وابنه الكريم الغوث الأعظم الإمام الهمام عبد القادر الجيلي وحزبه وبارك وسلم. أما بعد، فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه العظيم وخطابه القديم: شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في شأن حبيبه: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا وحبيبنا شفيعنا وكريمنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذرياته وأهل بيته رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. جماعة المسلمين، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. By the divine grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are just a week away from the glorious month of Ramadan al-Mubarak, the month that has been attributed to this beloved Ummah by the beloved Habib Sayyidina Mustapha sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last week we were discussing the act of Mujahidah, the act of indulging in worship, in spiritual struggle, and the goal of which I mentioned to you is the divine proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The entire field of Mujahidah, spiritual struggle, ibadah, is to get close to the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I did mention to you, the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the presence of His beloved Habib Sayyidina Mustapha sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I also mentioned to you about the Mujahidah and the spiritual struggle, the strenuous occult types of worship that the awliya and salihin and the pious people of the ummah engaged in for one reason and one goal, is to get close to the beloved Nabi Sayyidina Mustapha sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, if I have to ask a devout Muslim, what would you like to pay, or what would you pay, or what would you sacrifice in lieu of sitting in the company of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam personally for 1 minute? If somebody tells you, I can arrange a meeting with you, between you and the beloved Nabi Sayyidina Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam, whereby you will sit in his presence in full consciousness, what would you pay me in lieu to sit with the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam? I ask the question to you, what would you like to do? What would you like to sacrifice? What would you like to give a person who can arrange a meeting between you and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam? It's a very relevant question. It is a very important question. Obviously, if you're a devout Muslim, and if you know what is the moral values of Islam, and if you know what is the status of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you will say, take everything from me, whatever belongs to me, including my life, for me to have one glimpse of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So If you look at your form of worship, you cannot compare it with the form of worship of the elite servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How they sacrifice their pleasures, how they sacrifice their lives, how they sacrifice all sorts of peace, like others live a comfortable life. They have sacrificed every comfort for one goal, and that is to be close to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who is the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when you get to his door, you have obtained Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, here is something that you should ponder about. It's very important in the life of every single Muslim to sit and ponder that we struggle so hard and yet we have no certainty, and lots of Muslim, devout Muslim, leave this dunya without having a sitting with the beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or even having a dream about him. They leave this dunya with that ardent desire, in that burning desire. But here, on the contrary, you will find the lives of the Sahaba, how fortunate they were when they lived their life in the presence of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How fortunate they were that they used to perform salah behind the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They used to look at the manifestations of divine beauty exploding from the body and beautiful face and sacred face of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they sacrifice everything. Therefore you will find in their life the eagerness to sacrifice their life in the battlefield, in jihad, in defense of Islam. For what? Because they have achieved the ultimate achievement, that was in being in the presence of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then after that is the pleasure of Allah, whereby they will sacrifice their life, no matter whatever the circumstances is, no matter whatever the pain is, no matter whatever the difficulty is. They used to go in the battlefield and be eager to sacrifice their life. Sayyidina Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala an, the second righteously elected Khalifa of Islam, in his period, Masjid al-Aqsa was recaptured from the kuffar. It was Sayyidina Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu ta'ala an Khilafah, that it was his time. And then over the period of time, it was lost again to the Crusaders. And then again, in somewhere around around late 400 to 500 Hijri, when Sultan Salahuddin Ayyubi recaptured it from the Crusaders and gave it back to the hands of the Islam. So Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an had sent the army to capture it, and when they arrived in Jerusalem, and when the popes and when the priests of the Christian community watched them from the fort, watched the army, an awesome feeling, an awesome power, totally foreign to them, had captivated their hearts, and they then turned to the Crusaders, who were regarded as one of the strongest army in Europe, invincible army in Europe. It turned around, they all turned around collectively and said, "It is wise for you to hand over the keys of Masjid al-Aqsa to the Muslim, failing which, if you fight with them, there will be no sign of your bodies." Such was the impact by just looking at the army that was camped outside the fort of Masjid al-Aqsa, the Haram al-Sharif. For your information, the whole Haram al-Sharif at that time, and in ancient days, each city was fortified. That includes Makkah al-Mukarramah, Madinatul Munawwara, Damascus, or whichever major city there was always fortified and the people lived inside the fort. The Christian leaders convinced the Crusaders and the Christians that it is not advisable to fight because you will not win this battle. You will be totally annihilated and humiliated if you ever come and face this army. So collectively they have agreed. When they agreed, then they put a proposal to the Muslim that we will hand over the keys on one condition, that Amir al-Mu'mineen, your Amir, your leader, Sayyidina Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu anhu has to come here personally from your capital in Madinah Munawwara, and when he arrives here we will hand him the keys. A dispatch rider was sent off to Madinah Munawwara. Must have taken about a fast horse rider from Damascus, from Masjid al-Aqsa to ride to Madinah Munawwara will be in a region of about 17 to 20 days. A fast horse. Because in calculation of movements of horses at that time, fast moving horses, it took Sayyid Nuruddin, the great leader, Sayyid Nuruddin Zangi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, to ride from Damascus to Madinah Munawwara in a time of crisis when the Christians tried to dig a trench underneath and remove the body of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. At that time when the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam came in his dream and informed him about these two dogs, and he gave the description, showed them the faces of these two people, that they are interfering with me, please come here and sort it out. So Sayyidina Hazrat Sayyid Nuruddin Mahmud Zangi radiyallahu ta'ala an, who was the leader, and the Sultan Salahuddin was the prime minister of Sayyid Nuruddin Zangi radiyallahu ta'ala. He took him 17 days to ride from Damascus to Madinah Munawwara. So if you look at the geographical situation of Damascus and Jerusalem, it's about in the same longitude. So we will work around 17 to 20 days that it will take him to ride. So the dispatch rider was sent, and Sayyidina Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala an set out along with his servant, his khadim, to Masjid al-Aqsa. Now Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala, Nisi Mujahidah gives you spiritual consciousness. Worship is conditioning the mind and soul and purification of the heart, the inner self. In Mujahidah, in spiritual struggle, and the forms of worship actually has a direct impact on the inner self of the human being, which is his cosmic personality, or which is his spiritual personality. The inner self. When the inner self is purified, it reflects on the outer self and controls the outer limbs. So a man of spiritual value will behave with prudence. He will behave with the amazing behavior that will actually convince and captivate the human being because of his beautiful conduct. Now when the inner self is corrupt, like the hadith, Sahih Hadith al-Bukhari, the beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Innal jasada mudghatan." There is a piece of meat in the chest. Innal jasad, in your body, mudghatan, a piece of meat. Iza salahat, when it is rectified, salahal jasadu kullu, your whole body is rectified. Iza fasadat, fasadal jasada kullu. If that is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. Allah, beware. Inna, verily, hiyal qalb, that is the heart. So